All right, now the best way for us to do a few of these is just to do some from the book. And what happens here is we have the idea of grouping. If you turn to page 130, 5.5 exercise, there are 24 of these. If you do all 24 of these and understand them, and maybe you go through it once, you don't really get it, so then you stop and you kind of, most of us don't have a memory such that we're going to go, oh, I memorized it, I can't do it again. Most of us can do it again, right? And so you go back through and you do it again, and this time maybe you do a little better. Maybe you're not completely comfortable, do it again, and then do it again, until you're finally comfortable and feel like you can do them. I will tell you that, when I was learning logic, the first time I taught logic, it was highly symbolic. It was largely symbolic. And I had a logic course that was probably more like what we're doing here, but I was teaching in Texas, and it was a symbolic logic course because it fulfilled a mathematics requirement for teachers in Texas. And so they were really big and focused on the symbolic part of it. And what does it say? So I was, doing this, and I had more of a more general, so I had to kind of relearn all of it. And all I did was just sit down, and every week before class, or every, like a few weeks before class, I would sit down and just do every single problem. And then before I would go to class, I would sit down and do every single problem in the back of the book. And if I didn't feel like I could do them all in my head in a matter of 30 seconds, then I would sit down and do them all again. And these were much more difficult than just translations. And I would just do this over and over again. And eventually, now, I pick up that old book, and I can do those problems in 2 seconds because I did that. And the same thing is true here. You just kind of have to keep working through the problems. So, do that. And the other thing is when you get to the exam, I don't know that I took the examples from this, but a lot of times, if you look at number 1, it says, it's not true that if you have money, then you are happy. I may not have used that specific example, but I probably do have something that says it's not true that if you are tall, then you can see farther. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up as I go along. And so what happens there is that format and how you translate that, if you understand how that one's formatted, you will be able to see that in the examples on the exam, and you should be able to ace it, okay? So here we go, that first one. If it's not the case that if you have money, then you are happy. To begin with, it says if you have money, then you are happy, right? It's just a short M horseshoe H. If you have money, then you're happy. But it says it's not the case that, and it comes before that if, which means it's negating the entire statement. It's not the case that if M, then H. It's negating that statement as a whole. And so you need parentheses and a bar out in front. Not a soul made a sound, and not an eye was dry. So we have soul made a sound, eye was dry. But the not is with each of these. It's with this one, and it's with this one. And there's an and between them. So it's bar S plus bar E. It's not saying bar S plus E. Why is that the case? Because that's saying it's not the case that a soul made a sound and an eye was dry. Meaning there may have been a sound made, but there wasn't a dry eye, or the other way around. But it's saying this one wasn't true and this one wasn't true. This one's saying both of them weren't true, but one of them could have been true. These mean different things. This means something different from that. And so this is what it means. This means not a sound was made, not an eye was dry. Number 3, the test was not very hard, or I studied well. So, test not very hard, or I studied well. Number 4, if you live in the Southwest and don't water your lawn, it will die. So there's an if-then, which is the overarching idea. And what happens is the if part is a conjunctive statement at the beginning. The antecedent is a conjunctive statement, which is you live in the Southwest and don't water your lawn. So I guess they're using Y for living in the Southwest, and you don't not water, then it will die. So it's saying if you live in the Southwest and you don't water, then it's the case that the lawn will die. These both being conditions that, if true, will lead to this. If you live in the Southwest but you water your lawn, then this antecedent won't be true and the lawn won't die. If you don't live in the Southwest and you don't water your lawn, so it's bar Y bar W, your lawn's not going to die either, potentially. I mean, if you live here in the Midwest, your lawn's not going to die because you don't water it. Your lawn will go into hibernation, but your lawn will not die. I have lived in Texas. I went to grad school in Texas. I think I just talked about Texas. Talked more about Texas in the last 3 minutes than I have my last month or year. But what happens is when you live in Texas, it's funny because like I had a friend who he rented a house, and he's a retiree, and he'd come back to get a master's in philosophy, and he decided he wanted to do that, kind of teach just part-time or whatever in retirement, because he had started grad school in philosophy, but then went off to Vietnam, and then he became a lawyer and stuff, and so he wanted to come back and teach, and he had a lawn, and the reality is he would water the rental lawn he had. He was renting a house, and he would water it, and then he would have to mow it. And I was like, why don't you just quit mowing it? Because I saw his neighbors who had rentals quit watering their lawn, and their lawn was just dirt. And I thought, that sounds perfect, right? Not only do you not have to mow, but you also don't have to pay for the water, right? But the reality, and I said, you're just renting, so why do you care? And he's like, well, I'm not going to ruin my lawn. You know, he was that type of person. But that's kind of the case where, you know, I mean, it's more than just, you know, if you live in the Southwest and you don't water your lawn, it will die. Now, if you don't live in the Southwest and you don't water your lawn, it might hibernate, but it's not going to die. Let me do like 2 more of these. If John plays quarterback, then Todd gets the full pack position, and Randy is on the bench. Now, in this case, the then is a comma, and then the then part is one long statement. So what's going to come after the then is a compound consequent. It's a conjunctive consequent. And so if John plays quarterback, then it's the case that Todd plays fullback and Randy is on the bench. And because that comma is there, and then you have the then in a long statement, you know that the then, the if-then, the horseshoe, is your main operator. Number 6, if Sven plays quarterback, then either Marsh or Steve is replaced. Once again, I guess they're using Q for Sven. If Sven, then either, and it has the other part, M wedge S. Okay? The next one, the baritones, the altos are in the choir, comma, but not the altos. But is a plus. I guess I'll erase a few of these and then I'll talk about that real quick. The baritones, the altos are in the choir, so it's B plus A. But then it says comma, but is a plus. And then it says not the sopranos, so we have a bar S. But that comma signifies that those two are united together, and the plus is the main operator. All right? I'm going to let you guys work through these, because I don't think I need to do all of these. If you find one and you're kind of wondering why the answer is different from what you have, email me. But the last thing I want to talk about is, what you will have is, on the exam, there will be 10 statements. And they'll be things as simple like, you know, Bill is not here. And I won't give you the letters, and you have to go, Bill is not here means bar B. Or it'll say, it's not the case that Jeff and Sue are coming. Then you know it's not the case that J plus S. Okay? Parentheses, J plus S. And you have to make those translations. And there are 10 of those. Then there are 5 statements where you do it the opposite direction. Where instead of translating it from this into letters, you're taking the letters and translating them back into symbols. And so if you turn back in your book, you know, you have more symbolic translations on page 138. I won't talk about those. but those are a good thing to do as well. But if you turn back in the book to page 5.8D, if you turn in the back of your book to pages 147 and 148, bottom of page 147 is 5.8D, and these say interpreting symbolic statements. There's a bunch more problems on pages 145, 146, 147, 148, and those are all good to do as well. But what happens here is in 5.8D, there will be 5 questions on the exam that are just like this in 5.8D. And what it does is it tells you something like S means it snows, right? R means it rains. P means there is precipitation. And then what it does is it says S wedge R, number 1 on that list. And what happens is your job then is to translate this and say, what does that mean? If this S means it snows and this R means it rains, then S wedge R means it snows or it rains. If I have number 2 on that, you have to kind of turn the page to see it. It says P horseshoe S wedge R. This says if there is precipitation, then it's either snow or rain. And you would need to write that out. If there is precipitation, comma, then it is either snow or rain. And that's what that means. And so your job is to translate those. Now, a few of these are a little complicated, and I do have some. I will admit there are things like bar S plus bar R like that. And that says it's not the case that it snows and it doesn't rain, or it's not raining. It's not the case that it snows and it's not raining. In that case, one thing to keep in mind when you get something like that is use as many words as you want. If you want to simplify it, that's fine, but don't simplify it to the point that you get the problem wrong. Be verbose. Give every word, give it its full meaning, don't pass it up, and that's sort of the key. So that's 5 of the questions, and then the last 5 questions on the exam are asking you things like, is this a sufficient condition for that or a necessary condition? And I believe I have some examples in the lesson online. Maybe it's in the book. I know it's guided to there, but that's the other 5 questions. And that part is multiple choice. All right, good luck. This unit is, by a lot of ways, it's very integral to the next couple chapters. You do need to know how to translate these, but it's not such a big idea that it should take you forever to learn.